Okay, children, we have seen the Harappan civilization, which was in 2500 BC. Around 2500 BC, we had the Harappan civilization. And after that, we also saw the reasons for decline, isn't it? There were so many reasons for the decline of the Harappan period. One was flood, and we said it is not normal flood, but it was flood caused because of earthquakes also. Earthquakes had altered the floodplains, they had raised the river beds, and they had changed the sloping patterns. See how the earth slopes, the water moves in that direction. That is how the course of the river is formed. In geography, you all have learnt about this. How do we know that the river has to flow like this or it has to move like this? Why does the river not flow in a straight line? Why does it go meandering like this, like this? The reason is wherever the slope is, the water will go there. Then again, where the slope is, the water will turn there. Like that, the course of the river is formed. Now, when earthquakes happen, this sloping pattern changes. And then it changed, and all this the slope. It so happened that the town was in the slope, and that is why. And the river bed was raised, and that is why the water uh, came into the river and completely submerged the civilization. So then there was this another thing is increased aridity. Also, we saw increased aridity because the river Ghaggar got dried up, because the two tributaries which were giving water to river Ghaggar, they shifted due to tectonic plate disturbances and movement. Both the tributaries, they were captured by other rivers. So Satluj was captured by Indus River, and Yamuna was captured by the Ganga. So because of which Ghaggar became completely dry, and those who lived on the banks of Ghaggar, they either perished or they moved away. But in all those areas, it declined. Then one of the other reasons we saw was the deforestation, which was because of extensive cutting of trees, because it's a bronze age civilization. They are using wood for melting metals, they're using wood for baking bricks, pottery, furniture, whatnot. So many uses they were using. That is why it was, you know, deforestation caused the decline. And the last reason that we had discussed was attack by Aryans. Okay, so we said that Aryans came from Central Asia, and they massacred everybody in this region, in the Indus region, and then they settled. So we are now going with the same story. See, the origin of the Vedic period, children, or the Aryan civilization is very much in question. It is debatable. Till now, there is no conclusive proof, because many historians believe many things. They have their own theories. So even in the book, they have not discussed the origin in great detail. They've only said that some historians believe that they came from Afghanistan. Some historians believe that they came from the Arctic region. Some historians believe that no, they didn't come from anywhere. They all were already there in Indus Valley, and they came from the Sapta Sindhu. They just, from the Indus Valley, they moved to the Gangetic Valley. Okay, so that is how different people are giving different theories. They have their own reasons, but so it's a very, what do you say? This question has not been resolved, and there is no conclusive proof as to what is the origin of Aryans. But the most, what do you say, famous or the well accepted theory is the theory that Aryans came from Central Asia. Why this theory is accepted is because the different, in Rigveda they have mentioned certain plants, certain animals, and certain features, physical features of certain things, geographical features, and those kind of the same kind of things are found in Central Asia. Central Asia, where the steppes, where all this Iran and all these places are there, the lower part of Russia and all that. See, that place is equidistant from Europe and Asia. That Central Asia region is same distance. On one side, if you go west, you will go to Europe. If you come east, you will come to India and all these places. So some historians believe that this Aryan race was from there only. And the Aryans moved in different directions. Some of them went to Europe and some of them came to India. When their population was increasing, they spread in both the directions. The ones who came to India, they were called the Aryans and they were the originators of the Vedic period. Okay, we will discuss the origin in greater detail. We will see this in more detail later. I'll explain, because if I start talking about the origin now, it will be little confusing for you. Only you know that the most popular theory for origin is Central Asian theory. Okay. Now we are going to see what is this Vedic period and why is it called Vedic period. So Vedic period means the time when the Vedas were composed. That is the time when the Vedas were written. We know that, the Vedas are storehouses of knowledge. It is like huge, each Veda is like a huge library in itself. Are you understanding? It has so much of information. They were so intelligent and they had some divine powers, we feel. When we read about all that, we feel it is not possible for a normal human being to have this kind of knowledge and this kind of creativity and all this. So there is something divine about this. Okay. So the Vedas are called, this period between 1500 BC and 500 BC is called the Vedic age. But the Vedic age is also divided into two periods, the early Vedic age and the later Vedic. We all believe that the Harappan civilization, it got declined in 1800, around 1800 BC. It started declining and slowly declined. So by the time the Aryans, settled down, it was 1500 BC. So in 1500 BC, 2000, it's very easy to remember this time period, okay? 1500, 2000 BC was the early Vedic age, and 1000 BC to 500 BC was the later Vedic age. Very easy numbers to remember. Both were 500 years each, okay? So both were equal, 500 years each, 1500 to 1000, 1000 to 500. We should see this is BC. So BC may, whichever is the bigger number is the older period. Okay, however big the number is, that much it is behind in history. Okay, so you should not get confused. So it is from 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Okay, and from 1000 BC to 500 BC is the later Vedic age, which came after the early Vedic age. And this, what happened when the Aryans came, when they, attacked the Harappans and they settled down in the Indus Valley. After some time, at that time, they were nomadic people. Okay, nomadic people means what? People who move from one place to another. Who are nomadic people? Who do not settle in one place. They go from one place to another. At that time, iron was not discovered. Okay, still iron was not discovered. Since iron was not discovered, with whatever metals they knew at that time, it was difficult to cut the forest, clear the forest and settle. Now, if you have to do agriculture, you need plain land, isn't it? Those days, everywhere there were forests. So if you want to do agriculture, you have to cut some of the forest and make it a plain land, and then you have to grow the crops that you want to grow. And it was not possible because they did not have the tools and the implements that are required to cut such heavy and big trees. Okay. So they used to move from one place to another. For some days, they used to stay in one place. And mainly they used to do cattle grazing. They were all, their occupation was cattle grazing. Okay. So they used to have cows and all, and important. So from one place to other, they used to move because all the sheep and all the cow, they need, what do they need? They need grass. So wherever there is grass, they'll keep going. and little bit whatever they need, some food they used to grow. Not that agriculture was not there in early Vedic period, but it was shifting agriculture. You know what is shifting agriculture? Shifting means the people do agriculture in a particular place as long as the soil is fertile. Okay. When you do agriculture, what happens? The crops take away all the minerals from the soil and the soil becomes infertile. So continuously, if we do agriculture in the same land, the land will become infertile. It will not have any minerals left and nothing will grow in it properly. First time it will grow because there are all minerals. Afterwards, the plant is grown, the crops are grown. Next time again, if we grow crops there, it will not grow well because minerals are exhausted. So nowadays, what they do, they add all these fertilizers to they add manure. Even at home, don't we add manure to our potted plants? We put manure, we put fertilizer. Why do we put that? We put that to give nourishment to the plant, to increase the minerals in the soil. Okay. So those days they didn't know all that. No, that you have to add minerals and all those things. That was the beginning of the civilization. So naturally, what did they do? As long as the fertility of the soil was there, they would grow some basic crops that they needed for their food. And then from there they will move. They'll move to another new place. And then there they will do agriculture. So like that, they used to shift. So the agriculture was shifting agriculture, and mainly they did cattle grazing and cattle rearing. They were nomadic people, went on moving. Also, during that time, the rivers used to frequently change their courses. Tectonic plate disturbances were more at that time. So the rivers were, all the time moving. So naturally, they would also move with the course of the rivers. All this happened. Then after this 500 years was over, towards the beginning of the later Vedic period, iron was discovered. Iron was already discovered, and we know iron is such an important metal that even today, iron is extensively used by us. Okay, one thing is iron deposits are found in plenty in the world. Iron deposits are there. More iron is there as compared to other metals like, gold, silver, bronze, and all these things. Not bronze, bronze is an alloy, but tin, copper. If you take all these other metals, compared to that, you have more iron deposits. So at that time, iron was discovered. Now, this iron was such a boon for them because first thing, it was so hard. The material was very strong. It could be made into different implements, and it was you can use iron for a variety of purposes. Okay, so once iron was discovered, they had the tools to cut the forest and clear spaces for agriculture. By that time, they were shifting in early Vedic period. They were shifting, and from the Indus Valley, they came to Gangetic Valley. Okay, Ganga Valley. So from Indus, they came to Ganga. Once they came to Ganga, iron was discovered. And Ganga Valley, we know that is a very fertile valley. Lot of alluvial soil is there. That Ganga has so many tributaries. The entire region, right, from that whole Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, up to Bengal, where the Ganga River joins the Bay of Bengal, isn't it? That entire course of the Ganga River, on either side, you have such fertile and nice land where everything grows in plenty. Food used to grow in plenty. So what these Aryans did, they settled, they stopped moving because by then they had iron implements to cut the forest. They cut the forest and they started doing proper agriculture, and they started staying. And slowly they occupied all the areas as the population went on increasing of the Aryans. They started occupying all the places on both the sides of the river Ganga. So that entire Gangetic plain was inhabited by the Aryans in the later Vedic period. Are we clear, children? So early Vedic period, they were nomadic, and iron was not discovered. Cattle grazing only was their main occupation, and shifting agriculture they used to do, and they used to keep going from one place to another. And the period was 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Later Vedic period, iron was discovered. They had the implements to cut the forest. So they cut the forest and cleared large tracts of land on or either side of the Ganga. So the entire Gangetic plain, they started clearing the forest to grow agriculture, and that's a very fertile land. So naturally they settled, and then their main occupation shifted from cattle grazing to proper agriculture. Okay, now they started doing proper agriculture, and they were doing cattle grazing also. Domestication of animals was important even in later Vedic period, but it was second. The place was second place. First place was agriculture. I think now we are clear with how the transition happened from early Vedic period to later Vedic period. Okay. Next. Can you see this map? In this map, it is very clear. This is the early Vedic period when they were settled, when they started, not settled, we should say when they were living in the Indus region. This is called the Sapta Sindhu region, children. It's also called the Sapta Sindhu region because the earlier, the ancient name of Indus river is Sindhu river. Okay, Indus is actually Sindhu. So it is Sindhu river. So if you can see, this is the Sindhu river. See, this is the Indus river. This is the Sindhu river. And the Sindhu river has so many tributaries. Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Sutlej. So all this put together, there are 7 rivers are there. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 more are there. Okay, all these 7 rivers, that's why it's called Sapta Sindhu. Okay, Indus river with 7 of its tributaries together is called the Sapta Sindhu region. So they were living in the Sapta Sindhu region, and as I told you, they kept on moving, and then they came to the Gangetic Valley. And in the Gangetic Valley here, see, you can see this entire region they occupied. So early Vedic and later Vedic ages. Now, early Vedic period is from 1000 to 500 BC. They are our earliest literature. The main source of the of the Vedic period, not early, both the Vedic periods. The main source of the Vedic period is the Vedas. Not only the Vedas, there were other texts which were like smaller Vedas. Okay, 4 main Vedas were there. Along with the 4 main Vedas, you had other compositions and other books as well, which had Vedic knowledge, which had explanations of the Vedas. All these books are also important sources for us to know about the life of the Aryans, the culture of the Aryans, the language they spoke, the food they eat, the society they lived in, the occupations that they, performed, and in their family, what were the rules in the society, okay, which gods did they worship. All this we come to know from Vedas. So Vedas are not just religious texts. They are religious in nature, but they have so much of information about various topics that today, surprisingly, in our own country, we have sort of, we are not celebrating the richness of our culture. We are not realizing that our Vedas are so great that we should go back to the Vedas and we should take out the information from Vedas and we should gain from it. Unfortunately, we are looking at Vedas as a religious book. So when we look at religious book, suddenly we don't want to touch religion. So we feel we are secular. So we should not, many people think that if you start reading the Vedas, you will become religious. It's not necessary. Without becoming religious also, we can get the information and knowledge of Vedas and we can learn from it. And today, in today's time, there are so many, in Europe is discovering the richness of Vedas. So if you see in Finland and all, they are chanting the Vedic mantras. In Germany and all, in Germany, Sanskrit, people are learning Sanskrit to read the Vedas, because Vedas are composed in Sanskrit. We ourselves are not learning our language, but outsiders are seeing the importance of these texts and they want to learn Sanskrit so that they can know the knowledge of the Vedas. That is the greatness. So I think it is high time we also appreciated our culture. Okay, just if we say that something is good, that doesn't mean that we are saying something else is bad. Whichever religion we belong to, this is not about religion. This is about knowing some astounding things, information and knowledge which is there, which is our heritage, which our rishis have composed, which people who were born in India have given as a gift to the world. So we have to respect and try to, I want you all to develop a balanced view of things, and I want you all to go back to our culture and learn, read these books and try to know what is there. Okay, there are so many books about our culture, Indian culture, which you all are supposed to start equipping yourself with. You have to read. Okay, then various aspects. So I already told you this Vedas is a storehouse of knowledge. It has knowledge about too many things. All about their life we know from the Vedas. It was written in Sanskrit, and we know Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. Okay, Sanskrit is called the mother of all languages because so many languages owe their origin to Sanskrit. So many languages have come from Sanskrit. They have borrowed words, or they are born out of Sanskrit. That is why it is called the mother of all languages. And then Veda is derived from the word with. Where does this word come? Veda. Veda comes from with. With means knowledge. Vidya. What is with? With this Vidya. Vidya means knowledge. Okay. So from Vidya comes the word Veda. Okay. That's why it is called Vedas. Vedic literature is divided into two parts, Shruti and Smriti. Now, children, as I already told you, this knowledge is so great that it is difficult that somebody would have invented all this, or they have with their own efforts, they have done all this. So there is some divine element in this. I told you there is some divinity in this. So that is what, the rishis, that is what is written in the Vedas also. Vedic literature is composed of two parts, Shruti and Smriti. Shruti means heard. What is heard? What is Shruti? Shravan karna. Shravan means hearing. So, some knowledge, Vedic knowledge, was just revealed to the sages. Means the sages did not go looking for it, or they did not invent it, or they did not discover. When they did meditation in their deep state of meditation, when they were in deep state of meditation, this knowledge was revealed to them. Revealed means it came to them automatically from God. God gave them this knowledge when they were in a deep sense of meditation. And that particular knowledge is called Shruti. Okay? So some rishis, some sages who used to do meditation and who used to go into a trance, for them, this came as a gift. They got it as a gift from God. So this knowledge was revealed. So Shruti is the knowledge that was revealed to the sages. Now, what did the sages do with this knowledge that they got? They passed it on orally to their disciples. Orally, remember, today if we have to memorize a small thing, we think, oh my God, how will I remember? One big paragraph comes, we start worrying, how will I remember this for the exam? Just imagine, those days, entire Vedas were just given orally from the teacher to the student. A student also only heard and learned and repeated and has memorized the entire Vedas. Can you believe it? They have memorized the entire shlokas and entire complicated Sanskrit verses just by listening, not even by writing. So, orally it was passed from the teacher to the student, and the student again passed it on. That's how for generations it was passed on orally. Finally, then it was started to be recorded. Afterwards, they started recording these verses. You know, slowly they started writing them on palm leaves and all that. Clear? So the written text came much later. Early Vedic period, in early Vedic period, only one Veda was composed, and that was Rig Veda. Okay, Rig Veda was composed in the early Vedic period, and in the later on, all the other other three Vedas were composed. So it was orally passed on, and when it was composed, that was called Smriti. Shruti and Smriti. Smriti means memory. What is Smriti? Memory. That means the disciples, they learnt orally, they memorized it, and from memory they wrote the text. Clear? So that is Smriti. So Shruti and Smriti. One part of Vedic literature is revealed to the sages automatically and it was passed orally. That is Shruti. And Smriti is from their memory what they have recorded. Are we clear? So there are two parts in Vedas. Okay. Now, if you see what is Vedic literature doesn't compose of four Vedas, not just Rig. So four Vedas names are Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda. So these are four Vedas. Apart from the four Vedas, you have Brahmanas. What are Brahmanas? See, first each Veda was, I told you, no, it was orally, it was told. Now for every oral Veda, there is a written text also. That written text is called Samhita. What is Samhita? Samhita is the written part of the Veda. Okay. After the Samhita was written, that Samhita was too huge and it had so many verses. So, and it was complicated. So, to make people understand in simple language, Brahmanas were there. The Brahmanas are also texts, they are also books. These books were written for every Veda. So Rig Veda has its own Brahmanas, Sama Veda has its own Brahmanas, Yajur Veda has. So every Veda has a Samhita. Each Samhita has its own Brahmanas, and these Brahmanas are explaining what is written in the Samhita. Are we clear, children? It's not very difficult to remember. What you should remember is that all the Vedas which were oral, they were first converted into text. That text is called the Samhita. The Samhita is complicated, so you need explanation. Explanation is given in Brahmana. Clear? Then you had Aranyakas. Aranyakas are books which explained how people should live in the forest. Those days, the rishis and the munis and these yogis used to live in the forest. So, rules of living in the forest and what they should do, how they should live harmoniously with nature is explained in the Aranyakas. Aranya means forest. Children, some Sanskrit words we should know. If we know, then only we can remember these words. Aranya means forest. So, Aranyakas means how to live in the forest. Okay? Upanishads. Upanishads are great books. They are fantastic books which give us philosophical knowledge about the Vedas. See, Vedas, I told you, has too much information. It has information about political life, about society, about various diseases, about there is scientific knowledge in the Vedas, astrology, astronomy, maths, all this is there in the Vedas. So many things are there. So Upanishads are, textbooks. They are also like, books in which only one or two ideas are taken, and that idea from the Veda is taken and explained in detail. The whole book will talk only about one idea. Did you understand? That is called the Upanishad. Upanishad, Brahmanas means entire Veda, it is explaining in simple language. But Upanishad means taking one small part of the Veda and explaining in great detail. That is called Upanishad. Clear? Then the Vedic texts are Samhita. As I told you, these are the Vedic texts, and Vedas are also called Shruti because they were revealed by, especially Rig Veda. Rig Veda entirely it was revealed by, to the sages. Okay. No, I've already explained this in the previous thing. Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, and Puranas. One more set. Puranas are stories. Puranas are very interesting because they're all stories. Different stories of gods are given in the Puranas, and not only gods, stories about so many people. Now, through the Puranas, we come to know a lot of moral values, and we get to know a lot of, how it shapes the character of a person. What is good, what is not good, how you should live your life, how to be happy, how to be strong, how to face difficulties, how to face challenges. Every lesson we come to know from the Puranas. So there are so many Puranas. One Purana is Bhagavat Purana, which is very, very famous because it tells the stories of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu in all his forms. He was born. Lord Vishnu was born many times as a human being on earth. So in every avatar, that is called an avatar. So in every avatar, what all he did, that is given in Bhagavad Puran. So children, today we will stop here and we will go ahead in the next class.